for being here. Thank you to BCDL for the gracious invitation. God bless you. God bless our great Commonwealth. And may God bless America.
Thank you. Great job. Okay, I introduced earlier Eric Pratt with Gun Owners of America. They've had extremely close ties to VCDL since the inception of VCDL. So with no further ado, I would like to pass this to Eric.
Patriots of America, how are we doing? I want to thank you all for being here today, and especially to those of you from out of state for traveling here to stand with us, Virginians, under less than ideal circumstances. What we are witnessing today is a travesty. It is shameful what Lord Northam has done. Does Virginia need more gun control? No. Let them hear you in the legislative building. Do we need more gun control? No. Lord Northam has, without authority, violated the constitutions of Virginia, of the United States. He has violated the law of Virginia by disarming law-abiding citizens during a contrived state of emergency. What Northam has done is completely lawless. That's why GOA and VCDL took him to court this past week to challenge his gun ban. Sadly, the first judge completely ignored state law. The law expressly prohibits the governor from infringing upon Second Amendment rights during a declared emergency. But you want to know something interesting? Guess who voted for that law? Guess who, when he was in the state Senate, voted to prevent future governors from denying gun owners' rights during declared emergencies? Ralph Blackface Northam. In other words, do as I say, not as I do. You see, this isn't about authority, folks. Democrats in this state are exercising sheer, unadulterated power without authority. So GOA and VCDL, we appealed our case to the Virginia Supreme Court on Friday, but the court punted. They never actually ruled that the governor's order was lawful. Instead, they used a procedural tactic to leave the gun ban in place for today. So if you're inside the fence, here we are. We've been subjected to an egregious disarmament, just as was done by General Gage to our founding fathers in 1774. Virginia's Royal Lord Dunmore did the same thing in 1775, when under the cover of night, he raided the Colonial magazine. Democrats like Northam are following in their footsteps today, and they're copying the pattern of Democrats of old, the very ones who told Martin Luther King Jr. that he wasn't good enough to carry a gun. He couldn't be trusted. Democrats denied his application for a carry permit in 1956, and they're still trying to deny our gun rights today. As we stand here today, on a day that honors King, I have one simple message. No one who is listening to my voice right now should ever again vote for the party of gun control. Never. I'm talking about the party of Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and yes, Lord Northam. Their party is anti-rights. It's anti-gun. Their party has declared war on the Second Amendment. And whenever they gain power, they set out to ban people's guns. No gun owner should ever help them get a majority at the state or federal levels. And let me give you a word of encouragement. If you have not been voting, please make sure that you are registered to vote. I'm not going to embarrass anybody. Ask for a show of hands as to who has and who hasn't been voting. But if you're not registered, please get registered to vote. Get your adult children registered, your pro-gun friends and family, and get them to the polls. That's the best way that we can make a difference. It's by replacing these lawbreakers. We need to throw the bums out. We need to clean house in the next election. You know, I mentioned what our founding fathers went through. There is a lot that we can learn from them because they were not strangers to oppression. On this day, 242 years ago, do you know where Virginian George Washington was? He and his men were freezing their butts off at Valley Forge. Men were dying. You think it's cold here? They were dying from exposure, influenza, pneumonia. Almost 2,000 of his troops died during that stay at Valley Forge. So how did that ragtag group win against a better funded, well-rested enemy? Let me tell you, one of my favorite portraits of all time is hanging in my office right now. It's a portrait of George Washington in the snow at Valley Forge next to his horse, praying. I'm sure many of you have seen that picture. And yes, I'm sure it's embellished somewhat, just like many other pictures from that time period, but many of the people who knew Washington said that was the kind of man that he was. He was a man of prayer, and that's why I like that portrait. It's a reminder to me of where the real battle is won. And George Washington knew this, and so did our other founding fathers. Listen to the words of Thomas Jefferson, another Virginian, penned in the Declaration of Independence. He said that in the midst of the war that they were fighting, that they were appealing to the supreme judge of the world to give them the help that they needed. The supreme judge of the world? Look, folks, they weren't talking about the United Nations. Those are the words that every founding father signed his name to in agreement. And for us, we would do well to remember their example. But you know who else should remember their example? Lord Northam. He doesn't recognize the God-given rights that are spoken of in the Declaration of Independence. He thinks our rights are mere privileges. He wants to take your gun rights away, but let me ask you again, does Virginia need more gun control? No! How will disarming you and me lower the crime rate? That's the question he can never answer, nor can he tell us how any of the new laws that he's advocating would have stopped the tragedy in Virginia Beach last year. He can't answer that question either. Look, I'm running out of time, so let me end with this. I'm cutting this short, but we have a powerful speaker coming up next who's going to talk to you about how we really stop a bad guy with a gun, because it's not gun control. Gun control doesn't stop bad guys with guns. Background checks don't stop bad guys with guns. A good guy with a gun does, and he's going to speak to you in just a second. But let me say this. The passion and the activism that's here today, it has to be a way of life. We have to stay vigilant. We have to pray. We have to vote, or we are going to lose our rights. The governor may think that he has won the day today, but he has only strengthened our resolve. As John Paul Jones said when all hope seemed lost and the British commander ordered him to surrender the ship, he said, "I have not yet begun to fight." Everyone, this here is a start. It is not the finish line. We will not compromise. Thank you for being here today.
Well done. Well done.
Thank you, Eric. The next person, a plumber by trade, saved countless lives at a mass shooting at a Texas church in Sutherland Springs in 2017. Without hesitation or concern for his own safety, he grabbed an AR-15 and ran barefoot toward the sound of gunfire. He didn't run away from it, he ran towards it. Coming from the gunfire coming from a church, and he engaged in a gunfight with a mass murderer. The murderer lost. Let's have a round of applause for Stephen Williford.
Nice, David.
Woo!
Thank you very much. I just want to say I'm going to go a little bit off the script here, and I'm going to tell you that this is more scary than facing someone shooting at you. I'm from Sutherland Springs. My community is under 600 people, and on November 5th, 2017, evil came into our church and started killing my neighbors. I grabbed my AR-15, the same kind of rifle that these politicians are trying to ban today. And I ran across the street. I confronted him in gunfire. He hit the truck in front of me, the car behind me, and the house behind me. And I hit him. Had I had anything other than an AR-15, I probably would have been counted among the casualties. He had on Class 3 body armor. Now that you know a little bit about me, I want to talk about who you are as Virginians. Virginia is the state, the birthplace of the Declaration of Independence, the state instrumental in designing the Constitution of the United States, one of the greatest documents ever written. Virginia, where founding fathers like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison crafted the Bill of Rights. These rights are protections from the very government that sits in this Capitol building and tries to strip them from you. These rights were given to you by God, not by them. Thomas Jefferson wrote himself, "The Constitution of most of the states assess that all power is inherent in the people, that it is their right and duty," get that, duty, "to be armed at all times." This freedom has been fought for and proclaimed in your streets, your cities, and your countryside. The blood of American patriots has been spilled here for that freedom. Freedom for tyranny, freedom for a government that ignores the voices of its people. Now all of America's eyes are on you, Virginia, wondering whether you will let your rights be encroached upon. This is not just a Virginia problem. We dealt with governments trying to disarm us before. In 1775, hundreds of British troops marched on Lexington and Concord to confiscate a cache of weapons, knowing that if they could disarm us, they could control us. They were met by over 2,000 Minutemen, farmers, trade owners, and shop owners. Together, these men drove back the British, and they kept their arms and their rights to bear them. This launched a war that would give birth to the greatest nation this world has ever known.
You got him going, you got him going.
Less than 100 years later, in 1835, the Mexican military controlled by Santa Anna attempted to seize weapons from Texas settlers. When they arrived to seize the weapons, they were met with a flag bearing the sign of a cannon and the words, "Come and take it." The Mexican soldiers were met with a hastily formed militia of Texans, and they were repelled. Gonzales kept its cannon. And the Texans, with volunteers of other states, including Virginia, won their independence, became a republic, and joined the United States of America. 14 of your own Virginians fought and died at the Alamo. From the Civil War to World War I and World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, and present conflicts, brave men and women have fought and died and answered the call for freedom. We've fought these battles before. Now, instead of sending an army, the government is sitting in this house that you built and trying to legislate away your rights. We will not stand for it. This time, with the wars of past behind us, let us use our voices to proclaim freedom loudly again and let them know they will not disarm us.
You got it, man.
James Madison, the crafter of the Constitution, believed our freedoms would more likely be gradually and silently encroached upon than violently taken away. These men in power are trying to silent encroachment and take away our rights, hoping that the people would be too complacent and too lazy to stand against them. Well, we're not either lazy or complacent. We won't stand for it. We won't stand idly by and watch our Constitution and our rights that American soldiers throughout history have shed their blood and died for be destroyed. Let's stand in solidarity and use our voices to let people in this Capitol know we will not let them take our rights away. President Ronald Reagan said it best. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on through the bloodstream. It must be fought for and protected and handed to our children for them to do the same. We must be vigilant, we must be united, and we must stand tall and speak loudly. As the heart cannot tell the lungs, that you have cancer, but I do not, so it's none of my affair. Neither can we stand by from California to Texas, all the way to Maine and all states in between and say that it is none of my affair. It affects all of us. The world is watching right now to see what we'll do. Let it never be said that it is my generation that failed to stop all this tyranny, that it was my generation that let it down for my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren and even their children. We have 3 boxes in which to defend our freedom, it's been said. The first box is a soapbox, which I stand on today and speak, and so does everybody here. The second box is the ballot box. November, go out, get registered, and vote. Yeah. The third and final box is a cartridge box. Let's hope that we are generations away from using the cartridge box because it's the last-ditch moment. I need to let everybody know today, including the people in this building, we are not the aggressors here. We are here coming in peace. We are not the aggressors. But we will not comply with bans, registration, or confiscation. We will not comply.
That's right.
Listen to that.
We as legal gun owners, as citizens, we have our backs against the wall, and we will not negotiate anymore. It's time to take back.
Amen.
No more negotiations. If they come to our homes to take our arms and to infringe on our freedoms and violate our freedom, they are the aggressors. They cannot come into our homes. They are the aggressors. And we will stand together. Thank you for standing with me today. God bless Virginia.
All right.
Yeah. God bless you. God bless you.
God bless the United States of America. We stand together.
Yes. Yes.
Love you, brother.
Well done.
Awesome. You keep that. I keep that one.
USA! 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 USA!
Stand over there.
Now, while he's doing it now.
Getting ready to wrap this up. Let's do one big chant. 3 times. No more gun control. No more gun control! No more
Gun control! No more gun control! No more gun control!
All right, I want to thank Tessa Ilshire, Layla Myers, Ed Levine, Joanna Smith, Ken Van Wyck, Ed Gottschalk, Pat Webb, Bruce